All right, I'm going to go ahead and begin. We have a lot of people on. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jason Shamus. For those of you who do not know me, I am the CEO for the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. I have recently returned from a solidarity trip with 7 community leaders to Israel, and I'm really delighted to bring this panel together today. I just want to frame what this panel is going to be about and why we're doing this. I'm sorry about the Microsoft Teams going off here. A lot of the questions and issues that we've been dealing with here in Northern New Jersey has been about the situation in the South and a little bit up north with regard to the devastation and the loss of life. And what we haven't really focused in on an awful lot is what life is like in Israel on a day-to-day basis, and specifically with regard to the household. So with us today are 2 people I hold near and dear to my heart. The first one I'm going to introduce is Ravit Steinmetz. Ravit Steinmetz lives in a moshav called Shavei Tzion, which is really a little piece of paradise just south of Nahariya on the north coast, around 6-7 miles from the Lebanese border. Ravit has been known to us for almost 11, 12 years at this point. She was originally with the Jewish Agency for Israel and then became our Israel representative around 7 years ago. Ravit has 3 children between the ages of 14 and 23, is originally from Akko, and has a stellar reputation in our community for working with our diaspora community. I also have the honor of introducing someone I'm rather close with, someone I've known for 42 years, if I'm doing my math now right, my little sister, Amanda. So my little sister, Amanda, with the local ties, is a graduate of Frisch, then went to Cornell, and eventually met her husband, who was the security guard on her birthright trip. I always like to throw that in. She's even smiling over there. Amanda has 4 kids now, between the ages of 2 and 11, lives in Petach Tikva, which is about 5 to 6 miles from Tel Aviv, kind of just due east. And what I felt was very important is, given that Ravit and Amanda combined have 7 kids between the ages of 2 and 23, that at all points in the spectrum of sort of having kids, they touch every life aspect. And so I'm delighted to have them both here today to talk a little bit about what it's been like for them day to day. And I think to talk about where we are today in the situation and some of the challenges and some of the issues going on at home, literally on the home front for them, is to maybe talk very briefly about what life was like before October 7th for you and your family. And then we'll move a little bit into what the immediate life was like and where we are now and how you're handling and managing these things. And the important thing that we're trying to convey here is how Israelis are affected on the whole, and what specifically the home life is looking like. So I'm going to ask Ravit to start a little bit about what it was like before October 7th. Amanda, you'll go afterwards, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I'm a mother of 3 kids, and my oldest is 23 years old. He is discharged from the army. And my second one is 19 years old. He was right after a service year, which is a gap year between the high school and the army. And my youngest is 14 years old, and she's on the 8th grade. And we had a peaceful and quiet life in, as Jason said, paradise. And my office also is very close to the border, and it's also in a beautiful place, which we can't go now. Normal life, I like shopping, I like to hang out and to travel in Israel every Shabbat, every Saturday.
Thanks, Amanda.
So like Jason said, I have 4 kids, 6th grade, 4th grade, pre-K 4, and daycare. My oldest kids are really independent. They walk to school by themselves, and then after school, everything is like within walking distance in my neighborhood. So they'll go together to Burger King to eat, or to Domino's. Like, they walk around outside. They spend a lot of time in the parks, meeting up with friends, but they're outside for a lot of the day. I would say they come back for dinner, they're outside with their friends. And on the weekends, we go into Tel Aviv a lot before the war. We go to the port. My husband takes the kids camping. We do barbecues, like in a lot of like the nature forests and things by us. So we're trying to maximize the time on Saturday with the family and get out of the house and really enjoy the good weather that we have in Israel. It's one good perk. And yeah, that's it. My kids are, like I said, like all over the neighborhood, and also my son all the time in the playgrounds and everything, my 4-year-old, my 2-year-old. So we're out a lot.
And so tell me a little bit about October 7th and 8th for you, where you were, what happened, your gut reactions, and how you really managed what was going on with the kids. Amanda, you want to start this one?
Yeah, so actually there were sirens at 6:30 in the morning on the 7th. And it woke my husband and I up. And to be honest, we didn't really believe it for a second. Like we kind of looked at each other because normally you have some indication that there's something escalating and you know that there may be sirens. This really caught us by surprise. We went out to the terrace in our apartment and we heard it loud. We turned on the news. And so in Israel, like if you have sirens, there's like a board that lights up and it tells you where the sirens are. So if you see your city, you know that you're supposed to go into a safe room. And we opened up the TV and the entire right-hand side of the TV screen is like lighting up with an orange board. And it's the center and it's the south and it's Jerusalem area. And it was going on and on and on. So it wasn't like the 90 seconds that you wait for a siren. It was just nonstop. I mean, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it didn't stop. So we woke up all of the kids. We went into the safe room. And when we came out, right away, we started to understand that it was something beyond just, missiles. And that's when we started to follow the story where you started to see terrorists crossing over the border, people sending text messages to the police saying, help us, all of a sudden these stories start to come out within the next 2-3 hours. And it was terrifying. I think one of the things that was really scary is knowing that they're crossing the border and not knowing also where they're going and how far they're getting and who's in the trajectory there. So it was just awful watching it.
How long were you in the shelter for that day? Do you know roughly?
Oh, I don't remember. We were in and out. It wasn't like a one-time thing. Because there was just sirens throughout the day, especially in the morning. But I don't remember, to be honest. It wasn't a standard 10 minutes. You're supposed to go in 10 minutes for one missile. It was definitely longer than that. And then we came out and then it was again. And then we came out and then it was again, so yeah.
Understood.
That was the first day.
And Ravi, you're much more up north. You're near the Hezbollah confrontation zone. What was it like for you that day?
So we didn't have any sirens. My dad called me at 7:30 in the morning. It was Shabbat, so we all slept. And he just called me and said, Ravit, we are in a war. Israel is in a war. And I just went and opened the TV and everything, and it was crazy, as Amanda said. And it was crazy just to see where the siren is and what is happening near the border. And because we are so close to the northern border, we were frightening that something like this can happen to us as well. So we closed all the windows and we closed it was crazy all over. And in the Moshav WhatsApp, everyone started to text, be aware, close this, close that, don't get out of the house. And it was a day that it was very confusing. And when I talked to you, Jason, and you said that there are probably more than 100 people that were killed, because in the TV they said 100 people were killed, and I was shocked. And you told me, Ravit, it must be more than 100. And I said, no way. Jason, you probably don't understand how much is 100 people in Israel. So I didn't realize, I think that all of us didn't realize how crazy it is.
Do you have a shelter in your house, and were your kids with you at home when this happened?
Yes, at the same time, they were all at home. luckily, because my son was supposed to go to the party in the party where it all happened there, and they were all home, and I was very lucky because some of their friends, some of my boys' friends were in the party. One of them is still kidnapped. Two of them, they know two of the one who murdered. My son was not a soldier yet because he was just enlisted this week. And some of his friends the army called all the soldiers that were on vacation for the weekend, and they all went back to the IDF.
And so walk me through the first couple of days. So now you come to realize throughout the day that this was not just, as Amanda said, the standard Hamas missile attack, and that there's other things going on. How do you manage the next 3 to 5 days? I'm going to ask you even like basic things to think about, like supplies at home, milk, juice, bread, food. In Amanda's case, supplies for the kids, diapers and things like that. What was your day like for the next 3-4 days or however long it was after this, where you were really relegated to being homebound and trying to understand the situation? Amanda, you want to kick off?
Okay, yeah, sure. No, I think that the first few days were honestly like a nightmare because I mean, you just really didn't understand what the scale of it was. And you know, missiles is really scary, but a lot of people started talking about terrorist infiltrations, which is what happened in the South. And this is like really a nightmare, you know what I mean? Because the safe rooms are not meant to keep terrorists out, right? They're built out of steel or material in order to withstand a missile, but they're not meant to withstand fire, you know, and they smoke the houses in the South, and they're not meant to withstand an invasion, for example. So it was really like we felt pretty helpless because we locked our doors and we were very much at home. There were still a lot of sirens going off in the first 2 days. In my area, there was several every day. There was probably 4 or 5 a day in the first few days at least. So we all stayed very close to home.
Did you leave the house at all in the first couple of days?
Not really. I mean, the first day it happened, it was Chag here, right? It was a holiday. And then in the next few days, so nothing was open. In the next few days, I think my husband left just to get formula. You know what I mean? Because I can't, like, I need that. But that was about it. It was like ghost town outside, you know, there was nobody. I mean, I was getting text messages. I'm like an hour and 20 minutes north from where all of this happened. And I was getting like text messages from people really scared, you know, and well, there's a terrorist infiltration in Hod HaSharon or Kiryat Ono or in Petach Tikva, you know, all the neighborhoods by me. And at one point, I remember my husband said to me, listen, if I have to, I'll stand with a knife at the door. Like, you are completely helpless. You just don't know, like, what's going on. You're waiting for the army to respond. And then when the army did respond, we're waiting for the army to take control back over the communities, you know, where the terrorists were now kind of, where they managed to take control. So you're just waiting for like the turning point where you can say, okay, we're on it, we have it, we're under control, and now we can be like offensive rather than defensive. And the first few days we were waiting for that turning point, and it was really scary.
So
And my kids.
before I turn it over to Ravi, talk a little bit about how your apartment is structured, where you were sleeping, because you have 4 little-ish kids to manage for that term.
So yeah, so we have a safe room in our house, which is actually like in a normal situation, it's actually my 9-year-old's room. So it's a standard room, but it has like the special material and special windows and a special door. So we opened up basically 3 beds in there for my 3 boys. So it was like, but it's tight. So it was like 1, 2, 3. You couldn't walk in between them, you know, they're like literally wall to wall. And then I put a pack and play in there for the baby. So it was really tight, and all 4 of them slept there, but they slept there for about 3 weeks like that. It wasn't just the first 2 days because we still had sirens, like, you know, and when we had to go in there during the day, you know, it was tight. So, but thank God we have that room in our house, you know. Other people have to go into the stairwells, or they have to go downstairs into the basement of a building, you know, so we have like a private place to go, which is nice.
And Ravid, I'll ask you sort of the same question for you. Those next couple of days, where were people sleeping? Did you have enough food in the house? Did you or Mary or any of the kids even venture to leave? What was it like up north?
So we went also only for the grocery store to get things for the shelter. I mean, to get some water, some radio, whatever the army said we need to have at the shelter, cans, snakes, and things like that. So this is the only thing we went out to. My husband went to work. He's on reserve duty, and he went there. He couldn't stay at home. It was, as Amanda described, ghost town everywhere. Like nobody were in the street, and I just remember that we cried all day. That's what
Yeah.
we did today.
Yeah.
We cry, really
Totally.
sit next to the TV and cry all day, every day.
And what about your
And
kid, Ravi? You have your kids are a little older. They're gonna follow things a little bit differently. How are they during this time?
So my daughter, she's 14 years old. She decided to move to the shelter, to the safe room. And since then, this is her room. I mean, she doesn't want to get back to her room. And the other two, they were scary. But mostly about their friends. I mean, the friends that they're in the army, they're in both borders, Gaza or in the north. That's what they were talking about all day. They couldn't communicate with their friends because they have no cell phones, the soldiers. So that's why they were so worried.
And so now let's scroll out a week or two later. Your kids have already been off a long time with school because of the Chagim and the high holidays. Now what's it like? It's week 2, 3 after the 7th, so it's the 21st, it's the 28th, those weeks. What's it like at home? How is school communicating with you? How are you handling the need now to go out for groceries, going out and leaving the house? How are you impacted that way? So Ravid, I'll start with you, your daughter. Explain a little bit about where she goes to school and what happened in that situation.
So my daughter's school is right next to the border. It's less than a mile from the border. And most of her friends are evacuated from there because they live in the kibbutzim up north. And the government evacuated them. So a lot of her friends and a lot of her teachers as well. Schools is closed. School opened only a month ago, I think, or maybe less. But back then it was closed. They were all day at home. They did meet friends in the moshav. I mean, they went from house to house just to be next to shelters, but they didn't have any activity or they didn't play outside as they used to. That's it about the schools.
And Amanda, for you?
So it was really, it was difficult because we had, like Ravit said, we had like 2 weeks of holidays. My kids were off of school, and then we went into war, and they were off for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So now we had like 6 weeks that the kids were home, which it's always challenging, right? But I mean, my 4-year-old, my 2-year-old, we couldn't take them to the playgrounds. We couldn't go outside with them. I mean, honestly, it was, we had lots of sirens still here. We had few times every day we had 2, 3 sirens. It was strange because it was happening between like 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. It was almost like you could predict the times at some point, but then they would throw one at you on a Friday at 2:30 and you would say, wait, I can't be outside at this hour, So you tried to like maneuver it and you couldn't. But my kids were home from school and we didn't really let them go out or do anything. Nobody went out. And Ravit, when she talked about people crying, I can tell you that even during those weeks when we were like 2, 3 weeks in, so I'm in a city, not a moshav, and there's a lot of apartment buildings, and I would go outside on my terrace and I could hear the neighbors crying from the other terraces. I mean, on their phone crying. It was like the country went into like a mourning period, 100%. It felt like it was Yom HaZikaron, like Memorial Day here, every day for like a month. So, yeah.
But how did you two keep the sanity of the kids and the family. And Ravi, you didn't talk about the fact that you actually evacuated to Renana for a little bit. So I want you to talk a little bit about that and why. And then I want you both really to talk about how you kept your kids and your family and yourself sane and focused during this time. And also what it was like when you did go out to get milk or juice or formula or whatever you needed.
So after 2 days in the north, we decided to evacuate it ourselves because there were rumors about terrorists from the north that will come through the beach. We live close to the beach, and we decided to move to the center, to Ra'anana. And we spent a week there with friends in a friend's house. It was very difficult because the kids were not in their surrounded and the natural surrounding for themselves, and they didn't like to be there, to stay there. And most of the time, I don't think that I helped them to keep sane because my oldest asked me in Ra'anana, where we stayed in Ra'anana, asked me, Ima, what would you prefer, that I would kidnapped or will be or killed by terrorists? So I'm not sure that they were sane. And I told him honestly, I would prefer that you will be killed. And my daughter, she was crying all day. It was good for them to come back home. And I feel for all the evacuees that are still somewhere.
Totally.
It's crazy. It's crazy because they live in hotel rooms, 4, 5 family members in the same room, small room of the hotel. It's insane. It's insane to spend the days like that.
Yeah.
And you, Amanda, how did you keep?
I agree with Ravi. Like, I don't think I managed to keep the kids sane. Like, we ourselves weren't sane. It's like my youngest two, maybe, they were less aware, but my 11-year-old and my 9-year-old watched the news with us. They knew everything that was going on. They knew a lot, like considering their age. I mean, we tried to keep them away from the hostage stories because I think this was just, something that even we can't bear, but as far as like when there's sirens, what's going on in the north, they were aware, and they also have friends with like brothers that were drafted. So if we didn't discuss it with them, they would find out anyway, so we had to discuss it with them because it's better to come from us. And we exposed them to everything, and they knew that we were very concerned in the first few weeks what was going to happen with Hezbollah, which we're still concerned about. We were very concerned about if there's still terrorists inside of Israel, if there's going to be riots from within the Israeli Arab community, which thank God didn't happen. This was a major thing as well. So my oldest, I would say, was probably my oldest, and my 11 and 9-year-old were most affected. My 11-year-old started locking the door. I would go down to throw the garbage, for 2 seconds downstairs at the bottom of the building, and he would lock like the top of door so that it's a double lock. And he would wake up at night. And my youngest said to me, he came to me one day in those first few weeks, and he said to me, Mommy, it must make you really sad to see me and Adam. My 9-year-old said it to me, and I said, why? And he said, because I'm sure that you think of all of the kids that were taken, that are in Gaza. And I cried, so my kids, they know. They knew why they weren't allowed outside and everything. So I don't know that we managed to keep the sanity, but I can say that it was important for us to share with them what's going on and make sure that they're aware and try and let them know that we have a safe room and that we're okay. And I even said it to my 11-year-old. I said, we have a safe room and we're okay. And he said, what happens if terrorists come in? And I said, well, the army will come. And he said, well, why did it take the army so long in the South? So they were really aware of everything. And I think that's the way to keep them sane, was to let them know what's going on and have them be a part of it, I guess.
And then once school started, was it back to normal? Was it staggered? How is it working with the school? And I'm going to ask a slightly different question too, is Israel has lost a lot of its labor force. There's over 300,000 reserves that have been called up. I'm assuming that's affecting other aspects of your daily life, whether it's to, like I said, to go to the supermarket or whatever it is. So how is that being managed? What sort of pressures is that putting on you? How does it affect you emotionally?
So my daughter's school moved because I told you that it's near the border. They are going to elementary school. She is in high school. They are going to elementary school in shifts. And the elementary school kids go from 8 to 12. It's very short days now. And they are going from 12 to 4, but in shifts because they all need to be near shelters. So there are not as many classes are close to the shelters. So they're going every other day. It's been like this for a month. I have no idea how long it's going to take. There are no Zoom because a lot of the teachers are on reserve. Some of them are in different places in Israel. They learn they don't learn too much. They have like English class once a week and math once a week. It's something that I don't think that something will happen this year for them in the educational system. It's very difficult for them.
And socially, do you let your daughter out at all now? Like, how are you? For those of you who don't know,
Yes,
his daughter,
because we
she's
live in
very
the
social.
Moshav. So because we live in the Moshav, they do meet friends, but we just ask them to be near a shelter. So everything should be, if they are in one of the houses, it's fine because they are the safe room. And if not, it needs to be near a shelter. That's it.
And Amanda, how are you juggling Gan, pre-K? And I know you're kind of smiling because it's you don't know how you're doing it, but tell us a little bit about how you're doing it, and tell us a little bit about the situation with Daniela in her Gan. And Gan, for those of you who don't know, is the pre-K program kind of.
Yeah, so the kids went with Zoom originally, my oldest. And then when they did go, and it's very difficult for a 9-year-old to sit in a Zoom class. Like, we all know this from COVID. A lot of us know this. So, and then the added stressor of sirens, breaking up the classroom, the Zoom sessions, I should say, was a lot. But I think that the kids, when they did go back to school, they went also in alternating days, kind of like what Ravit is saying. They did a lot of drills and exercises to get to shelters. My oldest ones in elementary school have a shelter pretty close by, same as my 4-year-old. My 2-year-old, it's still today it's a mess because they have a shelter on the floor. But there's just in her class alone, there's 30 kids and they're 2. And they take naps during the day from 1 to 3. So if there's a siren between 1 to 3, they physically can't get to the shelter on time. I mean, and it's something that's known. It's something that the owner of the daycare has said there's really not much that she can do about it, unless we want to pick up the kids and have them sleep at home. My husband and I, thank God, both have jobs. I know a lot of people don't right now, so we're grateful, but it's not an option to bring her home. So it's a risk every day, it's a calculated minimal risk, and I'm aware of it. But when there are sirens at 2 o'clock, I go into like a very bad freak out mode because I know that they can't get the kids to the shelter on time. So I don't know. This is something that's going on still today. I don't know how we're going to handle it. If it gets worse, I will pull her out. But for now, she's there. Yeah.
And you two both work. So tell me a little bit about how this has affected your ability to work, and a little bit, to the extent that you're comfortable, about how it's affected you personally and emotionally, everything going on. I mean, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing with us. I don't want to open up any
Sharing is an Israeli thing, I think. I have a plan in my mind since October 7th, the Shabbat Shchora, what I'm doing if there are a terror attack here in my area. So I know exactly where the kids are, and I told them where they need to hide. It's crazy. It sounds crazy, I know, but
Yeah.
it's something that I told my kids. It's like a drill. That's what Amanda talked about, a drill in the school. So I did it in my house. What they need, how they need to close everything, where they need to hide, and everything. And this is one of the things. And I find that the fact that I'm working, it helps me a lot because I'm not sitting next to the news all day, and so I keep being busy, and it's really helped me a lot to be busy, to talk to people, to go for meetings. That's what I'm doing. And I can tell you that every question of Mashlomcha, how are you doing, between people, it's like I feel that we are inability to express ourselves. I mean, people, when you ask Mashlomcha, it's either I don't know how to answer these questions, or horrible, or the other one is like everyone. This is the answers that you hear, and this is the reality here.
Amanda?
So yeah, I mean, Ravit and I don't live in the same area, but I did the exact same thing. I will tell you, when my kids started walking back to school, my 11 and 9-year-old walked to school by themselves. It's like 6 minutes from the house. My husband and I gave them an entire scenario. So if the siren goes off when you're here, this building, you're going to this building, and this is the code, because we know somebody that lives there, and so this is the code to get in. And if the siren goes off there, then you're going to run into the shelter that's part of the supermarket. And if the siren is in the playground, you're going to go into the coffee house here, and there's a shelter there and where it is. So we did the same like point by point exercise. And my kids have been without me when there's been sirens. And they text me from their phones right away. Mommy, I'm okay. Mommy, I'm here. I made it, to wherever they're going. They don't meet with friends outside anymore. They don't hang out on the playground, especially in the afternoon, because we tend to get the sirens in the afternoon here. So they're kind of like housebound, which I think is very difficult for them. My 11-year-old knows that if I'm going to get my 2-year-old, for example, and my 4-year-old is home, then he has to take my 4-year-old into the safe room if there's a siren, and he has to calm him down. So it's you prep for it, you kind of play the worst scenario in your head that you think your kids can deal with, and you make sure that they're prepared. As far as work, I think for me, it's a little bit different. I don't know. It's a distraction, but it's very difficult for me to focus. That's the truth. So I work with a global company, and I do global marketing. And so a lot of my meetings are actually in the afternoon, which is when we have sirens. So a lot of times I'm on the phone with my team or my boss or, sales in the States, and mid-call I say, sorry, got to go, there's missiles. And then I got to get back into the call after 10 minutes, and I have to focus again and continue the meeting. So it's really distracting for me because at those hours, that's when I do want to be on the news, and I need to be aware of what's going on outside. So I can say that my company's been really awesome. I worked very, very little in October, if anything. So they were really great with me about it. But now I'm pretty much back to work full time, and trying to, like you said, trying to keep the sanity,
So I'm gonna ask one last question, and then I'm gonna take questions from people on the Zoom. Tell me a little bit about how you see things going forward for yourself and for the family. Like, at some point, you're gonna ever get comfortable again in your own mind of letting the kids go out with their friends, after school activities stuff for yourself. How do you see it unfolding a little bit if you had to imagine a scenario? I know all bets are always off, but what are you thinking 2 months from now, 3 months from now, and beyond? Do you see light at the end of the tunnel? Those sorts of things. Who wants to go first, Ravit?
It's a difficult question. Honestly, I don't see the lights at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what's going to happen in the north. People that live up north won't come back home if the situation won't change. The situation will be changed only if there's going to be a war with Hezbollah. So I have no idea how long it's going to take and how long we're going to be like this like we are in the middle. We don't know what's going to happen. We are trying to live normal life, but as where I live, we hear the IDF artillery all day. There are sirens, not as many, but there are sirens, and the artillery is, we have a lot of this. I think that the whole country is in trauma. There are still nightmares and anxiety everywhere I look. I don't know what to say about the future, really.
Amanda?
Amanda, I hope you're.
I think I'm going to try and be optimistic. Yes, I'm going to try and take the other side of. I think that this is a developing story, right? Like right now, we've got one front. Other than today, which unfortunately we lost a lot of people today, a lot of soldiers, but overall, I think that we are taking control there. But it's a developing story up north. From the beginning, and my brother knows this, from the beginning, what has really kept me up at night is Hezbollah. I think that they are 100 times more powerful than Hamas, okay, and we know it. And my question is how we are going to manage with them. I don't live on the border like Ravit, but I can tell you, the big fear is that if they have 150,000 rockets, I mean, if they shoot it down to the center, buildings will fall. Like the Iron Dome just won't be able to keep up with it. And like I'm nicely positioned between Tel Aviv and the airport, which happen to be like two targets. And Hezbollah definitely scares me. We have to see how the army deals with it. I can say that I have faith in this army and I have faith in our soldiers. And I want to think that this country is going to do whatever it needs to do to protect its people. And I believe that, and that's why I'm still here. And I'm not going anywhere. I really believe that, this is what we're doing in the South, we can do in the North if we need to. And the country will make sure that the people that have to go back up to their homes up north and the people in the center and everybody feels safe before we actually end the war. So if we get past that stage and we know that we've done what we've needed to do, we've uprooted Hamas, we've pushed Hezbollah back, whatever we need to behind the river, we keep saying, or whatever it is, then yeah, I'd like to go back to daily life. I'd like to let my kids run around outside again, I don't think it will ever be the same. I think that people have seen something really bad, and there's always going to be that fear. I think people will get lax for their shelters, for example, and things like that. But I think that time heals things, and hopefully we fight the fight that we need to fight, and then we can go back to regular life,
All right, thank you. I'm going to just try and summarize some of the questions that are coming. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get to everything because I want to make sure we're off at 12:30 prompt. But one of the questions is, besides financial contributions and support, what can we here do in the States, in your opinion? What else can be done to make your lives better, easier? What would you be looking for us to do, if anything?
I can take that. I think that I really like Jason said, like I went to Cornell and I saw what happened there, in the university, like I don't know what it was already a month ago. And it's just really heartbreaking. I mean, I think whatever can be done here to stand with us and just make sure that everybody knows what's going on, and make sure that everybody knows that no other country would allow it to happen on their borders, and that we're fighting a legit war that needs to be fought to protect the citizens of this country. And if you can get the message out, and if you can have some people stand with us and be on our side, that will make us feel really good. you
So
know,
let me
to-
just pile on before Ravi chimes in. What about visits, solidarity missions from the States to Israel? Does that offer any comfort, support at all? And Ravi, you can answer the whole question now, including my addendum.
So first, I agree with Amanda, and I want to add that it really help. It will be really help if you help your kids with the anti-Semitism in the colleges, because we hear it and it's heartbreaking to hear what you're going through. So do whatever you need to help your kids to know the truth and to get over this period. The solidarity mission, I think that first it's very good for the economy. The economy in Israel is in bad condition. So it's very good for the economy. It's very good for us to see your support. When you come in and we feel the hug, I mean, we feel it from Zoom and everything, but when you come in and we feel it, it's amazing. And when Federation meets people here, I think that miracle happens. I mean, we just met the Nativa Asara people that we are supporting them. And it was amazing to see the kids, how they were happy to get the candy boxes and to talk to us. And I do think that it helps us.
So just so everyone knows, Nativa Asara is a moshav on the northern side of the Gaza border, and it's a community that we've now allocated over $300,000 to, both to help the kids who are displaced in 2 different places with their studies and some trauma care. So thank you, Ravi. There's an interesting question from someone here. I'm going to see if I understand it correctly, but it's asking about grandparents, or I guess some of the elderly relatives that you have, and what they know and what they don't know. And if they're calling you in sort of panic stages, what do you tell them? Are you honest with them? Do you have open dialogue? Or how do you reassure them? We focused a lot on the generation below you two, but let's talk a little bit about the one above. And if you have grandparents who are still with us, like, what do they know, and how are you working with other family members?
So
So my parents,
no, go ahead, Ravit. No.
My parents are in Israel. They separated. Each one lives in a different place. They do know everything. They hear the news. I think that they hear too much because they do nothing except hearing the news. They can tell me what's happening because I get a review from each one of them every day of what happened. They know everything. We can't keep them quiet.
So I was going to say my husband's parents live very close to us. They're probably like 7-8 minute drive away, like a mile and plus. And I think like they're young. My husband is the oldest. They're in their like mid-60s, I would say. They know everything, and frankly, I think they're less concerned than we are. I think they're tough cookies. My in-laws, they're like, well, I mean, of course they acknowledge that this is different, but they've been through wars before. They've told me we're not going anywhere, They have a pretty aggressive approach to it as far as like, what's needed in order to bring back the security to the country. They know everything, and we speak about it quite a bit, so yeah.
So Amanda, you
hear
triggered.
From Amcha, we support Amcha in area. So I do hear from them that there are people that are afraid to go out of their elderly, that are afraid to go out of their houses. They want people to come to them. They can't go and get the treatment they need. And so there are people that are very afraid.
So I just have one last question, really. This one's more for Amanda, because I know the story and the situation, but you're very used to doing Shabbat and other dinners at your in-laws all the time, because they're only a couple of minutes away. But there was an incident not that long ago where Yaniv, Amanda's husband, my brother-in-law, was with two of the kids, I believe, and they were leaving the
All four.
all four. So talk just because I think this is important for people to understand what you're facing and sort of the coping mechanisms.
Yeah, my husband was at my at his parents with all four kids. Um, and he was on his way back and he called me. He said, I'm getting into the car and I'm coming now. And this was a few weeks ago, like where it's been calmer. Okay. So he said, yeah, I'm coming now. And about 2 seconds after he got into the car, the sirens went off. And I mean, it's complex because, you've got two kids regular seats and then the baby sits in like the baby seat and my other kid has like the booster seat and has to be strapped in and everything. And I happened to be on the phone with my dad at the time, and I went into like a full-blown panic attack because it's very different when you have the kids with you in the safe room and you can tell them everything's fine, or when you're going into a safe room by yourself and you're like, wait a minute, like, what am I doing in here? Part of you thinks you're just, okay, I'm going to run out and I'm going to go meet them, but you can't make it on time, right? So, I went into like a hysterical attack. I think my dad was on the phone. I think I caused anxiety for him as well.
You did.
I think my dad was crying. And I was trying to get a hold of my husband, but at the same time, I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't, that I was letting him do what he needs to do. Luckily he didn't move the car. He had everybody strapped in, but he hadn't moved the car, so he got everybody out of the car. And then they ran into a building. They couldn't make it to my mother-in-law's because they didn't park. They parked like around the block. So they tried to get into a building, but the building was locked. They didn't have the code. So they ended up going like underneath the parking. Okay. So there's like, it's not sufficient if something would happen. But of course, the Iron Dome intercepted it, so it was fine. But yeah, I mean, it was a terrible feeling. I think since then it's happened quite a bit where I go into the shelter with one kid and the other kid is at a friend's house, okay? Because we let them go to friends as long as they're inside. Or my daughter was at daycare, or my other kid is at my in-laws. It happens quite a bit. It's really uncomfortable when you don't have everybody around you. So you can count the kids and know that everybody is with you and you're in control. It's very like you're helpless. And I think my husband was also pretty shaken up about it. I know that my father-in-law went running downstairs to see if he was during the siren to see if he was parked downstairs to see how he could help. So, yeah.
So there's one last question and then I'm going to thank you guys and conclude, but I think it's more about the economics of this is with so many people not working, because we hear story after story that there hasn't been much business and commerce going on since you called it Black Saturday, the 7th, Ravit. And with so many people on reserve duty, how are families coping with even paying bills or financial matters with things going on like this? Who wants to take
Amanda?
it?
Yeah.
You'll both take it from your
I
perspective.
think, yeah, I mean, uh, we have a couple of friends that are really impacted by it. A couple of people I mean, a lot of like independent business owners are going through problems for sure. Um, I know that the market's not that great as well. Obviously, there's companies that are not able to keep up and they're doing reductions in force, like RIFs. Um, I think it's difficult. I think that I can speak from a different perspective. So I can tell you for us, and we do have jobs, but we were paying daycare for the month of October, the month of November, and it's expensive. And I get it, it makes sense because the owner of the daycare has to pay her staff, right? But my daughter wasn't in daycare for October, and she wasn't in daycare for half of November either. So it gets difficult, like you're paying bills as if life is normal, but your kids are not going to their extracurriculars, even though you're paying the bills for the extracurricular activities. You're paying the bills for the daycare, but you're not sending your kid to daycare. And then you have friends, like I said, that have private businesses that are really complaining and having a hard time. So yeah, I mean, I think it's
Ravit?
tough.
Ravit?
So same is here in the north. Businesses some of them are not working since October 7th. Most of them are closed very early. every day. And what I'm trying to do is just to buy from Israeli products, actually. So I don't have the mood for shopping as I used to have, but when I shop, I try to do it with only Israeli products.
So look, I am gonna sort of release you two. You did me a favor here, given my connections with both of you. I really want to thank you. For those on the audience, I just want you to know, like, they did a great job, Amanda and Ravi. When you go to Israel, though, and when you sit down and you talk to both of them and you see their kids, you really get a feel for the work that they're doing. And I really commend them both. They're not on the battlefront lines, but they're certainly on the front lines in terms of maintaining the Jewish Zionist Israel dream and identity. And their kids are all remarkable, all 7 of them. It was great to see your kids briefly, Ravi, last week. Thank you for having them come see me. And look, we're here for you. We're one. We stand with you, and we thank you for sharing some of the more intimate, personal stuff. So thank you, and give both mishpachas my best and my love. We're with you. I'm Yisrael Chai, and thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.